Standing room is just right for the poor. Then you should stand. My name is Catherine Smith. I'm a 26-year-old woman, and I've been dating a guy named Bob for 3 years. We recently got engaged after he proposed. I grew up in a single-parent family with just my mother and me. Since I started dating Bob, I had told my mother about him, so when I told her about the proposal, she was delighted and happy for us to come over for greetings. Next, we needed to schedule a meeting with Bob's parents, but matching our schedules was tricky. As we were discussing this, Bob told me about his parents. Bob shared that his parents were a bit eccentric and might make us uncomfortable. Despite this, I wanted to meet them and be accepted, as they would become my family. Bob understood and agreed when I expressed this. One day, at Bob's as usual, I noticed some of my things were missing. "Hey, where's my moisturizer and cream?" He couldn't think of where they might be but searched with me, though we found nothing. I briefly considered cheating, but I'd never had any cause to suspect Bob, so I concluded it wasn't the case. "Hey, does anyone else have a key here?" When I asked this, Bob looked down thoughtfully and then, looking up, said, "Oh." It seemed like he'd figured something out. "I've left a spare key at my parents' house. So yeah, they could get in." Bob revealed this, but would my parents-in-law really throw away my stuff? It doesn't seem likely they would take it either. "But would your folks just toss out or take my things?" Doesn't seem like something they'd normally do. Bob began to speak, looking a bit uncomfortable. "Nothing of yours has ever gone missing before, right?" "Huh? Nothing. I haven't actually told them about having a girlfriend." "So? Does that make a difference?" "Yeah. I've been telling them I want to introduce someone special. They can probably guess what's up. But that's not odd for our age, right? Is it a problem? I think they might have come over to snoop around my place when we weren't around." Bob's words took me by surprise. "What? They would come over to snoop?" As I asked, flustered, Bob responded, still looking uneasy. "Remember I said my folks are a bit unusual? So, it wouldn't be out of character for them to do something like that." Hearing that they were an odd bunch was one thing, but if they were actually meddling to the extent Bob suggested, this might be more troublesome than I'd anticipated. "So could you check it out for me?" "Sure. I'll get on it." With that, Bob was on the phone to his mother in no time. "Hello. Bob, what's going on?" Even through the phone, his mother's voice sounded really happy to hear from Bob. Just by her voice, she seemed like a cheerful person. "Mom, have you been to my place recently? Some of my stuff is missing." There was a pause after Bob said that. "Mom? Oh, that was your stuff? I threw away those cheap-looking lotions and creams." At his mother's words, Bob sighed, and I was dumbfounded. "Why would you throw away things from someone else's house?" "Well, I thought some weird girl was after you. There were women's earrings too, so I took them for myself." "What?" Hearing that, I hurriedly opened my jewelry box in Bob's room. Everything inside was gone. "It's all missing." "Mom, give them back. That's Catherine's stuff. And taking someone's things is like stealing." "Don't say stealing, it sounds so ugly." I said I took them for her. Such jewelry is wasted on your girlfriend. And I won't allow you to have one anyway. "Mom." And with that, my mother-in-law hung up the phone. "I'm really sorry. I'll go home soon and get them back." "Yeah, thanks. But don't worry about the earrings. It's not hygienic to wear them now anyway." "I'm so sorry. I'll make it up to you." Bob was profusely apologetic. It wasn't Bob's fault, so I told him it was okay. I had wondered why Bob never talked about his family while we were dating. Did they not get along? I never pressed the issue, but this incident helped me understand a bit more. "Just make sure to get back the necklace that you and my mother gave me, that's all I want." "Absolutely. I'll make sure we get it back." Bob had never been one to apologize like this before. We'd always had a pretty stable relationship, rarely fighting, so seeing Bob like this hurt a bit. I had wanted to get along well with Bob's family, but now I was feeling a little uncertain about it. Later, Bob went back home and managed to bring back the necklace I wanted returned. It turned out that the ones with gemstones had been sold. Hearing this made me lose confidence in being able to get along with my in-laws. A few days later, Bob started getting frequent calls from his parents. They were pushing for him to go on arranged dates. It seemed like they wanted to break us up. Every time they brought up matchmaking, Bob would refuse and tell me everything without hiding anything. Thanks to Bob, I didn't have to worry, but I could see that it was wearing him out.
Bob, you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Just gotta keep turning down the matchmaking. Just worried that it's holding up our marriage plans. Bob said that with a sigh. Bob had been sighing more lately, and his smiles had become less frequent. I wanted to cheer him up, so I tried to stay as positive as possible. Honestly, I was also anxious about the stalled marriage talks. But right now, my priority was to support Bob and help him keep his spirits up.
Hey, how about we go to an amusement park on our next day off?
An amusement park?
You sure? You hate roller coasters,
Bob said with a laugh. Seeing Bob smile made me feel relieved.
It's fine. I'll manage. It could be fun, right?
Yeah. I've been feeling so cooped up lately. It might be good to blow off some steam.
Let's do it.
So, we planned to go to the amusement park on our next day off, but an unexpected event occurred. The night before our trip, I was staying at Bob's place since we planned to leave early in the morning, when suddenly the doorbell rang.
Who could that be at this hour?
He wondered aloud as he checked outside, his face twisting.
Who is it?
As I asked, Bob let out another sigh and turned to me with an awkward look.
It's my dad and mom.
Hearing that, I froze for a moment.
What? Your parents are here all of a sudden. What's up? I don't know. What should we do?
As Bob was pondering, the doorbell rang again. We wanted to pretend we weren't home, but if we did, they would likely just come back another time.
Maybe we should answer it? It's your parents, after all. I know, but...
While we were hesitating, the doorbell rang yet again.
Look. I know it's not what we planned, but I do want to greet them.
Saying this, Bob reluctantly went to answer the door.
Yes? Bob. What are you doing? Open up quickly. How long do you plan to keep us waiting?
Just a minute. Bob glanced at me. I nodded, and he sighed again as he went to the door. I wonder how many times he's sighed today. As I was preparing some coffee, I could hear his parents' voices.
Enough with this woman already. Go on a proper date we've arranged. That's right. The right wife for you is a daughter from a wealthy family.
Just listening to these words, I knew this wasn't going to be a pleasant encounter. I realized I had sighed too. I've caught the sighing from Bob. And then, the living room door finally opened.
Usually, you're, huh? And who might you be?
As the door opened, I made eye contact with Bob's mother. I hurriedly introduced myself. Pleased to meet you, I'm Catherine Smith. I've been dating Bob. As I introduced myself, his parents went silent. Feeling anxious about their silence, I saw them staring at me with a look of displeasure.
This is my girlfriend, Catherine. I'm marrying her, so there won't be any arranged dates.
Bob stood beside me and introduced me again. However, the response from his parents was as unwelcoming as I feared. Just as we feared. Our concerns were correct. Seriously. What a poor-looking girl.
Mom, Dad. How can you say such things?
I had braced myself for their disapproval, but hearing it directly was still hurtful.
I apologize for not meeting your expectations. Don't apologize, Catherine. You've done nothing wrong. Mom, Dad, you should leave now. Well, You're choosing this girl over us. What a disgraceful son you are. You came here on your own, right? We're busy, so please leave.
Faced with a situation far more turbulent than anticipated, I wondered how to behave. Then Bob's mother addressed me.
And your family? I have my mother.
Huh? What about your father?
My father passed away from illness when I was young.
That's not going to work.
A woman from a single-parent family.
Bob,
you should stop associating with a poor family. They'll just ask you for money.
I was fuming inside, but I managed to keep my cool. Then Bob, more outraged than me, yelled at his parents.
I'm disappointed in you. If you keep speaking ill of my girlfriend, I'll have no choice but to cut ties with you.
His parents, stunned by being yelled at by Bob, replied with frustration.
Do as you like. We're leaving. Don't think you can cut ties just like that.
They left as if fleeing the scene. Catherine, I'm really sorry.
Don't mind what my parents said. No, thank you for standing up for me.
I'm seriously considering cutting ties with them. It's only going to cause you pain otherwise. I was touched by Bob's words, but I still wanted his parents' approval.
I appreciate what you're saying, but I still want them to accept me.
Okay. I got it. We'll set up a proper time to talk.
That sounds good.
Afterward, we discussed and decided to arrange a meeting with both our parents to formally introduce and discuss our marriage. Unable to bring ourselves to go to the amusement park the next day, Bob and I spent a relaxing day at home instead. Thanks to Bob's efforts, his parents reluctantly agreed to get together with both families. My mother was happy to attend, and Bob and I geared up to get our marriage approved. On the day of the meeting, given that it was also a meeting between both families, I was on my way to the restaurant we had reserved with my mother. Bob was supposed to come with his parents, but he was running late due to work.
I'm nervous.
My heart raced as we rode in the taxi. But my mother chuckled and reassured me, it's going to be okay. I wanted to have a good discussion today and get the marriage approved by Bob's parents. I slapped my cheeks for encouragement and refocused. Arriving at the restaurant, I got out of the taxi just as Bob also seemed to arrive, and we met at the entrance. Bob, did you just get here? Oh, you guys just got here too? Thank you for coming today.
Likewise, Bob. You must be tired after work. I appreciate you making the time today.
As we talked, we were led to a private room. Upon opening the entrance to the private room, Bob's parents were already seated and, for some reason, smirking. Bob and I exchanged glances and wondered, but we soon understood why. We went to greet his parents and were about to take our seats when I realized there was no seat for me. I thought it might have been a simple oversight by the staff, but the next moment it became clear that wasn't the case.
The poor should just stand. There's no need to waste a seat on you, right?
It seemed that my missing seat was the work of Bob's parents.
Listen, in this world, income is everything. It's presumptuous for someone poor to sit with us who have high incomes. I'm a manager at my company, after all. Those who earn less than me deserve to stand or sit on the ground. What are you thinking, Dad? Mom? If that's the case, perhaps you, madam, would like to stand as well?
That's right.
A woman from a single-parent family couldn't possibly earn much. To think you would ruin a meeting like this. Dad? Mom? Are you out of your minds?
Watching the altercation between Bob and his parents, I felt my naive hope of being accepted by them piercing through me. No matter how hard I tried, not only did I feel like they would never accept me, but their values seemed too different to ever understand each other. I could only hang my head in defeat. Looking down on my mother and me, laughing, Bob's parents left me feeling like there was nothing to expect from them anymore, and honestly, I didn't even want to be associated with them. The parents of the person I love. I felt miserable for once wanting to cherish them as much as my own mother. Amidst my swirling emotions of anger or sadness, my mother spoke up.
Then you should stand. What?
The room went silent for a moment at my mother's words, followed by a deflated response from Bob's parents.
If income is everything, then you should stand.
Bob's parents laughed at my mother's words.
What are you talking about? The ones who should stand are you. Didn't you hear? My husband is a manager. And what of it? Oh, come on. Don't you understand what I mean? It's a well-known major corporation. Even the poor should know that. Of course, I'm well aware. But what does that have to do with anything?
Unruffled and calm, my mother was irritating Bob's parents. Bob seemed to decide to let my mother handle it and stepped back. As I hesitated about stopping my mother, Bob looked at me and shook his head.
What's with this woman? That's no way to speak to your elders. I will respond appropriately to those who act accordingly. So you're saying we're beneath you? If your standard is income, then yes, that seems to be the case. What did you say? Then, tell us your income. While I do not wish to disclose the details, I will inform you that it is in the billions. What did you say? Billions? Billions?
Yes.
And what might your income be?
Upon hearing about my mother's income, Bob's parents visibly began to falter.
No, that's a lie. There's no way a single mother could earn that much. You must be making up lies because you're mad at us. You're free to think that, but since it's the truth, could you please stand?
Go ahead, Catherine, take a seat. Although my mother told me to sit down, I hesitated under the painful gaze of Bob's parents until Bob took my hand and guided me to a seat.
Catherine, I'm sorry for putting you through this. I truly apologize.
His parents were outraged and told him not to apologize, but he ignored them.
It's fine. It's not your fault, Bob. Besides, we have a surprise guest today. A surprise guest? I think they'll be here soon. A guest? What are you doing inviting people without permission? I just can't understand the logic of a single-parent household.
As Bob's parents ranted, a voice exclaimed, "Oh! Is this the place?" And at that moment, the door opened, and in came my uncle, my mother's brother.
Uncle! Is this Catherine's uncle?
You made it. We've been waiting for you.
Well, it's for my dear Catherine, isn't it? I couldn't miss it. So, you must be her husband?
My smiling uncle appeared, and Bob, meeting him for the first time, greeted him somewhat perplexedly.
I'm Bob Johnson.
I'm dating Catherine.
Don't be so nervous. It's not every day you get a surprise like this. Catherine's like a daughter to me, so I had to join in.
I'm glad you could join us. Thank you.
You're very polite. Catherine's caught a good one, hasn't she?
Thank you. But you really surprised me.
President!
As we were getting into the conversation, Bob's father murmured.
Huh? Oh. Is Bob your son? Does that mean Catherine is the president's niece? This man is the president of the company and Catherine's uncle, and Bob's girlfriend's uncle. What?
What's the matter? Is there a problem?
No problem at all. We're honored by such a wonderful connection.
With a complete change in attitude, Bob's parents started fawning over my uncle. Seeing this, my mother, Bob, and I all sighed.
It's nice to hear that. Oh, and you don't have to stand on my account.
My uncle said this with a grin to Bob's parents.
Huh? What do you mean by that?
I thought for you too, income is everything, right?
Why do you know about that? It's a misunderstanding. We just meant that money is important in life. That's not the story I heard. I've been here for quite a while now. I've been listening to the exchange you've been having with my sister, you know? That is. Speaking of my sister, you're still making quite the income, huh? I'm envious. You're one to talk. Wait, you're still standing?
Bob's parents' faces went pale instantly.
That's right. We apologize. We have to leave now. We have things to attend to. Yes. We must be going now.
Feeling awkward, Bob's parents hastily made their exit. Bob repeatedly apologized to us. However, neither my mother, uncle, nor I harbored any anger toward him, and we were able to enjoy a delicious meal and have a good time together. A few days later, Bob received a call from his father, saying that they would approve of the marriage. This was after the previous unsuccessful meeting, and we had been wondering what to do. Bob and I were a bit perplexed by the abrupt change in attitude after they found out my uncle was the president of the company, a company where Bob's father worked. Eventually, Bob received another call, this time from his mother.
Listen. Your father has been fired. Did your girlfriend do something, huh?
What? Fired?
That's tough, but Catherine has nothing to do with it. Tell her uncle to explain what's going on, will you?
No way. Don't get us involved in your mess.
How heartless can you be? Your father's been fired, and you say that.
There must be a reason for his firing. You should ask him.
He won't tell me anything, that's why I'm asking you. You're useless. Forget it.
It seems that his father was indeed fired. Bob told me not to worry about it.
That's just how he is. With his personality, it's no surprise he got fired.
Bob said this with a chuckle, which strangely made sense to me. Surely, my uncle wouldn't fire someone without reason. There must have been something. We decided not to dwell on it. A few days later, his mother showed up at his house unannounced. It wasn't the first time she had done this, so we weren't surprised anymore.
What's going on here?
As I said, I don't know. I can't ask my uncle about company matters. I'm not involved with his company at all.
You're useless. Hand me your smartphone. Hey, wait a minute.
Bob's mother grabbed my smartphone from the table and locked herself in the bathroom.
Mom. Enough already. Give back the phone.
Bob was knocking on the bathroom door, speaking to his mother, but she wasn't listening and was clearly making a phone call through the door. It was probably to my uncle. We couldn't hear my uncle's voice, but we could hear Bob's mother's loud voice, and Bob and I strained our ears to listen.
So, I want to know why my husband was fired. Yes, this is your niece's phone. How dare you? I just borrowed it. No, I can't hand it over to her right now. If you tell me why my husband was fired, I'll let you talk to her. What? My husband was slacking off. No, that can't be. But lots of people pretend to be on outside duties to slack off, right? Well, that must be because those employees were challenging my husband or they upset him. He's a manager. The other employees should be accommodating him. Calling it harassment is an exaggeration. Hello? Hello?
The phone call seemed to end, and I heard the sound of my smartphone being thrown.
Mom. Give Catherine her phone back. You didn't throw it, did you? If it's broken, you're paying for it.
Finally, his mother emerged from the bathroom and threw the smartphone at me. The screen was cracked.
What's going on with your uncle? There are tons of reports of him harassing his employees, or slacking off under the guise of outside duties, even though he's a manager and has the freedom to do his job however he pleases. To fire my husband for such reasons? No, that's a whole list of reasons to be fired. It's Dad's fault. And you're going to pay for breaking Catherine's phone, too. What are you talking about? It's just a phone. You and your girl are both crazy, aren't you?
I reached my limit with their outrageous behavior, and my thoughts spilled out.
Please pay for the smartphone. I wanted to get along with Bob's parents, but I can't anymore.
I said it in a cold tone, and the mother-in-law was outraged. Then Bob stepped back, realizing I was angry.
Who do you think you're talking to?
You, old hag.
What?
Perhaps surprised by the foul language coming from my usually quiet mouth. His mother was taken aback.
What did you say?
You're just noisy.
It's your husband's fault he got fired, and it's your own fault you'll have to pay for the smartphone.
Just because you're the parents, who do you think you are?
What's with you? Were you always like this?
Catherine can be scary when she's angry.
Too bad, Mom. No, I'm going to cut ties with you. It's embarrassing to even call you my parents. Even Bob is. If you still have things to say, I'll be your opponent. But be prepared, okay? There's a lot I have to say about the rude things you said at the marriage introduction, the disrespectful way you treated my mother, and the inappropriate things you said to Bob. I have a lot on my mind, so be ready to spend the whole night. Perhaps feeling afraid, his mother hurried out of Bob's house. Did I say too much? I chuckled, and Bob laughed out loud. No. It felt good listening to you. Then it's all good. After that, Bob and I spent our time laughing. We thought about asking for the smartphone repair costs, but decided it was best to avoid further contact and got it fixed through insurance. Days later, Bob's parents began asking him for money. We're in trouble without your father's income. You should send us money every month. Who do you think raised you to this point? Pay us back for our kindness. Bob and I were dumbfounded by their unchanging selfishness. So much for their pride in income being everything. Bob was ignoring them completely, and it seemed only a matter of time before they'd come to his house, so we decided to move. Shall we move to the house we were going to live in after getting married? Yeah, let's do that. We had been house hunting for a while, looking for our post-marriage home. We had narrowed it down to a few options and recently decided on one. Contacting the real estate agent, we found it was still available, so we planned to sign the lease soon. After completing the necessary procedures at the real estate office, we were told we could move in next month. Our excitement was mounting as we prepared for the move to our new home. Let's treat ourselves to some good food before heading back home today. Sounds great. Let's do it. After eating out, when we returned to Bob's house, to our surprise, his parents were waiting at the front door. Seeing us, his father, in a fit of frenzy, lunged at Bob. What do you mean by ignoring our calls, huh? And you? Taking care of your in-laws is a wife's duty, isn't it? Staking out someone's house is crazy. Go home. What do you mean go home? Send us money now. Call your uncle on the smartphone, quick. Bob's parents were as relentless as ever, their obsession with money was extreme. Your family is rich, right? So, a little help shouldn't be a problem. Ask your mom and uncle for money. It was pitiable how they still didn't seem to comprehend the gravity of their demands. But Bob's patience finally ran out. Enough is enough. I've put up with you because you're my parents, but if you keep bothering Catherine and her family, I won't let it slide. Dad, you've run out of money to spoil your mistress, haven't you? And Mom, you don't have money to go out anymore, right? For all your talk about money ruling the world, you sure have a vile way of spending it. What? How could you? What are you talking about? I haven't, nothing. Have you forgotten what I do for a living? I'm an investigator at a detective agency. You've done so many terrible things, I've reached my limit. We raised you. Give us the money. Show some filial piety. Grandma raised me. You two were hardly ever home. If I'd been raised by you, I might have ended up with the same values as you, and for that, I'm truly grateful to Grandma. What? Seeing Bob this angry for the first time, I was taken aback and even found it impressive. His parents, unable to respond, bit their lower lips. But once they realized each other's infidelity, their anger turned on each other. What do you mean you've been going out? How shameless! And you? I can't believe you've been cheating. Unbelievable. We're getting a divorce. And you'll be paying alimony. Before we knew it, Bob's parents were arguing so fiercely they were physically grappling with each other. Wondering what to do, the noise was so loud that a neighbor must have called the police, who arrived on the scene. The police took Bob's parents away as they were too agitated to speak coherently. After being released by the police, Bob's parents reportedly continued to live together begrudgingly, having nowhere else to go. His father, unable to find a job due to his age, ended up working part-time.
His mother managed to find a job, but her difficult personality caused so much conflict that she ended up getting fired. It seems she's now doing piecework at home to get by. Bob has cut ties with his parents, changed his phone number, and they don't know where we moved to. We got married without a hitch and are living happily in our new home. A few months into our marriage, we discovered we were expecting a new life. Bob cried with joy, and my mother and uncle celebrated with us. My relationship with Bob, my mother, and my uncle is good, and once a year we all go on a trip together. Despite the turmoil, we're now happy with our lives, grateful for the experiences we've had.